Greetings, fellow mortals. Just a reminder saying it's just my opinion is for cowards. When I first heard about the film adaptation of Project Hail Mary, I was skeptical, to say the very least, about how well they could actually pull it off, almost as much as I was about the Martian movie a couple years back. Both films faced extreme levels of difficulty in terms of storytelling, at least from the perspective of film. Telling a story of complete and utter isolation without the characters being able to talk to each other is difficult, especially if the story doesn't have a voiceover narrating someone's thoughts, meaning that a character's entire thought process needs to be conveyed through actions, facial expressions, and body language all combined without any dialogue. And if you've ever played charades, you know that's difficult enough even if you do know the other person intimately. Sometimes it's just hard to communicate when you can only flail your arms about wildly. But even then, that leads to the major problem of exposition. Exposition is necessary background information that the audience needs to know in order to understand what is happening in any sort of story. Normally, exposition is expressed through dialogue between characters. If you want a good example, think of whenever a character is being introduced to a mission. Generally speaking, they are brought in by their superior, walked through the entire base, and explained in excruciating detail what you and the main character need to know in order to be caught up with the plot. Normally, this style could be considered an exposition dump. This type of exposition dump at the very start, where a voiceover or authority character outright tells you everything you need to know, is the easiest and perhaps the most common style of exposition in a lot of these types of stories. Think of the scroll over from Star Wars, the beginning narration of Iron Lung, where the epic voice speaks to you to gain your attention, or even something like John Wick, where his backstory is explained by the main antagonist, soiling himself in fear as he explains to his son that the dumb man-child just killed the dog of the most dangerous man on the entire planet.
I've made a huge mistake.
Boom, you're caught up to speed. You know what you need to know. I understand when movies do this, they're not books. They can't take hundreds upon hundreds of pages to lay levels of lore upon you. In fact, most books can't do that anymore without boring the intended audience who has seen the same trope hundreds upon hundreds of times. And even readers only have so much time to dedicate to what might be a 10 to 20 hour read. They get bored too. That's why Project Hail Mary decided to go about exposition in a different manner. The good old-fashioned amnesia trope. Just bop a character on the head, give them brain trauma, and poof. All of your problems as a writer have disappeared magically. The amnesia trope is relatively simple. Whoopsie-daisy, a super competent character who would normally handle this situation almost immediately, is on the scene. If they get to work right away, the story will be short, boring, and confusing. How in the world do we make it so that this character struggles in a situation where they would normally be super prepared for? How about they forget everything and have to relearn it? Think Link from Breath of the Wild, where the entire plot is him remembering what he had already learned before, or the various television shows now scrolling across the screen, which had characters lose and regain their memories in the exact same episode, either through small steps, all at once in a eureka moment, or sometimes simply through getting hit in the head again. Yep, more brain damage. That will definitely fix the problem. That is the first step that Project Hail Mary takes in order to tell its story. You follow the main character, Dr. Ryland Grace, as he wakes up from a medically induced coma. He's in a spaceship far away from Earth on an important mission that he can't remember because of his coma. And of course, sleeping through long space trips is a trope in and of itself. There could be a multitude of different reasons for this, for supplies, for the sake of lifespan, or just for sanity. But instead of going through cryosleep like in most sci-fi stories, the machines simply exercise for Ryland. And maybe I could get a machine like that to do that while I'm asleep. I've got a few extra pounds I still need to shed before summer hits.
Yummy, yummy, for my fat little pig tummy.
But as we find out, Grace is on what is meant to be a one-way trip to discover a way to keep astrophobes from dimming the sunlight reaching Earth and putting us into a new ice age. And he does this by traveling to another star, which somehow has a solution to all this. And if you want me to explain the theoretical science in greater detail, I apologize to each and every one of you. That is simply not possible for me. I myself have gotten hit in the head far too many times, but instead of gaining amnesia, I simply became dumber with each passing day. But at least it is a simple life.
Are you crazy? Or just plain stupid?
The way we find out the exact details of Ryland's mission is through flashbacks, you know, the fuzzy, wavy effect that happens right before we see the past. In order to avoid too large of exposition dumps, they space out the past in perfect increments throughout the story. Usually because the memory relates specifically to what the character of Grace is doing or contemplating at that moment. And it works out perfectly for the audience to inform us of just how we got here without it becoming too overbearing or taking so long that people get bored and zone out.
Which raises a pertinent question. What is taking so long?
So that twist on the formula solves the problem of exposition dumps. How did Grace end up in this position and why? But then there's the problem of him actually being able to solve the issue. You see, Grace is the only member of the team in that ship to survive the trip. Because apparently forcibly keeping someone in a coma for extended periods of time for upwards of over a decade is apparently not that great for your health and you might not actually wake up. Good to know. As such, Ryland has 0 human companions to assist him with the project. He's all alone with no one to love him.
Where the f*** is everyone?
This is an isolation trope where the main character is trapped at a location and maybe even everyone else around him is vanished. Use I Am Legend, Castaway, or even Andy Weir's other famous work in the Martian novel as examples. The main character is completely alone and has no one to interact with them. This creates a problem because a lot of storytelling, even in visual mediums like movies and television, happen through dialogue. Otherwise, actors would simply have to express what the characters are feeling and thinking simply through their acting skills alone. And who could expect actors to be good at acting or anything like that? An absurd thought, really.
This is quite a shock. On the other hand, it's not surprising in the least.
In the case of extreme isolation, writers can normally get away with characters talking to themselves, to animals, or to inanimate objects, or a combination of the three, because humans, by nature, are in fact social creatures. Yes, even you introverts out there. We cannot handle being all alone forever. We are simply not wired that way. So you can expect some mental deterioration to happen if you are in fact alone forever. Often to the point where we begin to act like non-sentient beings or objects can actually understand what we're saying. Or you could simply own a pet and do this naturally like I do. I literally have 3 pets in the office with me at this moment, and I definitely speak to them like they're people. But that might simply be the brain damage talking again.
Stupid is, stupid does, Mrs. Blue.
I guess.
In The Martian, this workaround to keep the main character from just talking to himself all the time is done through video logs. That way, he can in fact talk to himself and it makes sense, inform the audience of what is happening, keep himself sane, and make something that will allow others to discover that he's not dead yet. He is still on Mars, all of you left here without him. And if you do not get back to him immediately, he is literally going to starve. Except for real, Weir thinks a lot about food sources in these types of science fiction scenarios, and how people would want to theoretically die if they were going on a one-way mission to save the Earth.
So that's it? What, we some kind of suicide squad?
Because the plan of Project Hail Mary is not for Grace to come back to Earth as a conquering hero. He is out there to discover how to save the planet, send the info back, and then die. Nothing else to do because there's not enough fuel or rations for him to get home. So you might think that this guy would just plain old despair. I mean, his crewmates are dead, he has no hope for himself, his only purpose is to sacrifice himself for the greater good of mankind, and spoilers, by the way, from here on out, 3 to, one, he didn't even volunteer for this. He was forced into it against his will.
No!
Come on, it's good for you.
So you might think that he wouldn't even be able to pull off this impossible mission, at least without help, and you would be right. The first time I was reading Project Hail Mary, I was perplexed by how in the world he was going to be able to accomplish anything, really. And then Weir had the absolute genius move of introducing a companion who is simultaneously an object, a dog, and a person all at the same time. He brought in Rocky, no, not that Rocky, the alien Rocky, who is the sole reason that I prefer Project Hail Mary compared to The Martian.
I've only had Arlo for a day and a half. But if anything happened to him, I would kill everyone in this room and then myself.
Rocky is from an alien planet whose main star is experiencing the exact same issues as Earth. Like Grace, he is the only surviving member of his team to make it to the site to conduct the experiment, except there is a problem. Rocky is more of an engineer than a biologist. Just like Ryland Grace doesn't have enough know-how to hardwire new gear for experiments or to simply repair his own ship. If only these two could work together in order to make a solution that could save both of their worlds. Oh well, there's no chance of that happening.
Really makes you think.
And this really helps the plot because Rocky anchors both you and Grace. Without someone to communicate with, this would have been a tragedy where we watch Grace slowly unraveling, while solely working towards the absurd, difficult to grasp goal of saving the entire planet and everyone on it. While this theoretical concept isn't necessarily a bad thing, Ryland being able to motivate himself that way and not simply give up over time would be impossible from a human psychology point, especially because there's no guarantee that there is a way to duplicate the solution or that it could even make it to Earth in time.
Well, that sucks.
Rocky gives Project Hail Mary something that it desperately needed, a symbol of hope, a reason to keep going on, something simple and tangible that motivates Ryland not to curl up into a ball, start sobbing, and simply give up. Rocky is a ray of light that is odd, fascinating, quirky, and very personable, even if they have communication problems at the very start. And I mean actually not being able to tell each other what they're thinking because their languages, body structures, and facial expressions are completely and utterly different. Luckily, they both immediately figure out that the other is friendly, but their journey to actually be able to speak with each other starts from as much of the ground up as the experiments on the astrophage. What is that I hear? Symbolism? Parallelism? Oh no! The thing about Rocky is that he is 100% alien, and not just in the extraterrestrial sense. He's not really like how you would anticipate sentient life to evolve at all. He doesn't see, eat, or even sleep in a way that's similar to humans, who are so egotistical that they put parts of themselves into even aliens that we envision. If they're not monstrous threats that we can't understand and want us dead, then they can at least usually eat the same things as us, or at least look like busty blue versions of us. Come on, they knew what they were doing with the Asari in Mass Effect. I know it's hinted that the Asari appear different to other species, but still, the creators knew what they were doing. Rocky is not like that. Nope, the busty woman covered in blue paint is going to be saved for the Rule 34 version of this movie. Instead, Rocky is a creature that I always had a mental image of a rock crab in my head when I was reading the book. In fact, learning about him, his species, his world, and his culture is far more interesting than the astrophage research, to be honest. A budding bromance appears, except that Ryland Gosling has to act in front of a puppet, which is being controlled by 5 different puppeteers who need to coordinate perfectly. And it was brilliant. I absolutely loved it.
No notes?
No notes.
No notes!
No notes.
No notes!
No notes. It's perfect.
Rocky's involvement pulls pulls it all together. What would normally be a project of despair becomes one of hope, where instead of working towards goals which are so large that they're difficult to grasp, the characters and the audience, as an extension, grow to care about their friendship more than anything else. Each step forward or bump in their relationship is mirrored by the experiments on how to stop the astrophages from blocking too much sunlight and inadvertently freezing their planets over in perhaps one of the worst paths to extinction that I could think of.
Well, this sucks.
Thus, the problem with science fiction truly arrives. As someone who has read and watched and enjoyed many different versions of science fiction, I'm going to be completely honest with you. No one really gives a about the science. The number of players who care about how mass relays really work in Mass Effect, or viewers who care about transporter functionality in Star Trek, or midichlorians in Star Wars, okay, no one actually cares about that one, but that's beside the point. Anyway, no, the small details and lore really don't stick in the audience's mind more than the overall concept. Most people will remember this. Thing absorbs sunlight, must make new thing that eats sunlight, because I'm going to be honest with you, half the population is below average intelligence because of that pesky brain damage which keeps popping up.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard.
Not to excuse writers who break lore or make something that doesn't make any sense. That's their job, for the love of sweet dear baby Jesus. Be consistent and know the lore if you're making something, which they did in this case. It all sounds kind of believable, maybe possible, not totally absurd, which is the right level of explaining things to the audience. And as you might expect, right as Rocky and Grace become the bestest of best friends ever, something bad happens, forcing Rocky to sacrifice himself for Ryland.
First, let's get one thing straight. I'm not crying. I'm just sweating through my eyes.
Not. Just kidding. Rocky doesn't die or anything, but that showed just how much that Rocky cared, or at least needed Grace to finish the work, considering that Ryland's knowledge was necessary to save both planets. But their everlasting friendship is established right as they find the solution, not only to the sunlight issue, but also to the fuel problem that Grace needs to get home. But of course, you know that's not the end of everything. Ryland's character arc isn't done, so when Rocky's ship has a problem, Grace has a choice. He can save Rocky and Rocky's planet by sacrificing himself because he won't have enough food if he goes back to save Rocky, or he can return home where he will be applauded as the greatest hero known to humanity and live in luxury for the rest of his life. And we all know what he picks.
Screw you guys, I'm going home. But Carmen, we're trying to... screw you guys.
Nah, just kidding. He completes his character arc, willingly saving Rocky by sacrificing himself. Of course, he doesn't actually starve because they use the anti-astrophage creation to make food for him. And he returns to Rocky's planet where he lives out his days teaching children just like he did at the start of the story. All the while later learning that Earth did in fact receive his data and saved itself. Thus, his hero's journey is completed because he might return home forever changed now that his rocket ship is fixed, or he might simply stay on the alien planet.
I don't know.
Through the way that Project Hail Mary communicated its story, the events unfolded out of order. This was done to create intrigue, mystery, and avoid exposition dumps. At the same time, it hid what Grace's character arc actually was. For a long time, we believed that he was a person who willingly sacrificed himself for this mission because it was good for mankind and for the future of the children. But the truth is the exact opposite. While he didn't resist the call to work on Project Hail Mary from Earth, he did resist the call to go on the space journey itself. Thus, his decision to prioritize Rocky over himself demonstrated his growth, because his mentor character, Ava Schrott, literally knocked him out and forced him to go. Once more, with the brain damage, Ava Schrott exists as the exact opposite side of the coin to Rocky. While he is hope, she is the necessary pragmatism to make that hope possible. At the same time, both of them are willing to sacrifice everything and anything necessary for the sake of the mission. Strahd is not a character who will probably be acknowledged or praised for years to come, both in universe and by the audience. But she was an excellently written character who wears all of her flaws on her sleeves and owns them. This is who she is. She will save this damn planet no matter the cost, even if she has to drag us all there kicking and screaming. She will lie, cheat, abuse, threaten, blackmail, and manipulate her way to success. She receives no pleasure in it, but she will do what needs to be done.
Whoa, this is heavy. There's that word again, heavy. Why are things so heavy in the future? Is there a problem with the Earth's gravitational pull?
I could see a lot of people hating her, both in terms of the audience and in the universe, like I said earlier. But someone had to make the hard calls. Someone had to be the villain. And Ava Strahd readily admits near the end that she knows that she will be arrested, tried, imprisoned, and perhaps even executed for everything that she did. Ava accepts that because future generations will get to live. She doesn't even care if her name becomes synonymous with mud, even if she's known as one of the worst human beings ever born. Ava will save this planet whether we like it or not. She does so efficiently and without straying from the path. The perfect terrible person at the perfect terrible time.
Oh, I made myself sad.
Strahd and Rocky are Grace's two primary relationships. Both are necessary, but one is vinegar while the other is honey. Technically speaking, Strahd saved 2 whole planets, and there's not a single person who will ever thank her for making the hard calls. Even as she forced Grace into the mission, I really couldn't hate her myself, because she always made the right call. She did what had to be done, even if it wasn't pretty. She didn't stray from the path or become corrupted, and that's not something that many people could say. I admit I could not handle that much control and power over the future of the human species. Too much brain damage for that.
Hans, are we the baddies?
Project Hail Mary presents a story of hope for the future, but also the necessary pragmatism to get there. Every problem can in fact be solved, but not without sacrifice. It is through connections that we thrive and achieve. Tough calls and self-sacrifice are as necessary now as they once were or will be in the not so distant future. Though it relies on the familiar tropes of amnesia, isolation, self-sacrifice, and future generations, Project Hail Mary does it in a way that's refreshing and unique. It also doesn't hurt that the film is gorgeous and the acting is amazing. Ryan Gosling and the puppeteers didn't miss, apparently.
Excellent. Here, have a look. Good.
Through all the scientific jargon and gobbledygook, the story keeps you locked in through connections and the struggle of communicating with someone you normally would be terrified in any other circumstance. After all, how many alien movies are there where they're just plain evil and a giant monster that needs to be defeated? And Rocky looks like he would be pulled straight from any of those tales, but this show of humanity and something that really doesn't look human is much better symbolism than the satire of Starship Troopers or Helldivers. Perhaps a genuine attempt to communicate rather than mock achieves much more. Really makes you think, huh?
I'm just saying.
Through the use of old tropes, Project Hail Mary makes something new and unique, something that is amazing. I loved it. The only problem is that it cost way too much money. Seriously, why was the budget that high? And also, the writer of the book is planning a sequel, apparently, that is completely unnecessary. Seriously, not everything needs a sequel. This is perfect as it is. Leave it alone. But what do you think? Did you like Project Hail Mary? Did you like the various tropes that it used to communicate the story? Did you like Rocky as much as I did? Please leave a comment down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And remember, if you disagree with everything I have to say, that is perfectly fine. After all, everyone is entitled to their objectively wrong opinion.
Well, hang on, you've just... No, I like it. This is brilliant. But I like this.
Thank you all so much for watching.
You're still here?
Good night, everybody. Thank you. You bye. Boom.
Do not despair.